Hi Jan, nice to talk to you again.
Good morning, Bruce. It's been more than 2 months, huh?
I can't even remember. There's been
Yeah,
so many things going on, but
it
it's
is
been
in
definitely
September.
too long.
Hmm.
Almost forgot what you sounded like. But and we missed our Friday call yesterday. We tried to make a Friday call, but we ended up discussing important topics, and so we're doing a Saturday call today. And so we have a list of topics that we wanted to talk about today. I wanted to start off by reading a section from further back in the manuscript,
Hmm.
and it's a section that kind of exemplifies a lot of the work we do together on the revision. Lots of interesting points of discussion and contention and grammatical difficulty, but and a lot of fun pronunciations and stuff. So it's a rather short section, section 16a, Canals and Dykes.
Yes.
And if you're ready, I'll just do my best to read it out.
Okay, so it's possible for the people who read on the screen that the version you are reading is a bit different from the version that is currently on the wiki because you had made some edits for this
That's right.
reading that have not been implemented on the wiki yet, and some of
That's
them
right. And some of
remain.
them we haven't decided on fully
Hmm.
yet.
Yeah.
So there's the one sentence there, and I put something down that I'm going to read out. It may not be exactly in line with what we've discussed, but we'll figure it out and get when it's up on the wiki, then it has been discussed to the end
Yeah.
for the most part. Canals and dikes. My ancestors have written this book, one after another. I will do the same, above all, because there is no Bürch left in my state where events are recorded as before. My name is Conrad. My father's name was Frederick. My mother's name, Williau. After father's death, I was chosen as his successor, and when I was 50 years old, they elected me Principal Reeve. My father wrote of how the Linda regions and the Liot gardens were destroyed. Lindaheim lies in ruins still, the Linda regions partially so. The northern Liot gardens are covered by the salt sea. The foaming waves lick the ring dike of the Burg. As father reported, the people who had lost everything came and built small houses inside the ring dike of the Burg. Therefore, this ringed area of land is now called Liutvert. The steersmen say Liuvert, but that is a mispronunciation. In my youth, the remaining land outside the ring dike was all pools and swampland, but Freya's folk are clever and diligent. Neither do they tire nor grow weary when working to successfully accomplish a goal. By digging drainage canals and building dikes with the soil that came out of the canals, we again have a good domain outside the ring dike, which is like unto a palace courtyard, measuring 3 poles eastward, 3 southward, and 3 westward. We are currently working to make a foundation of piles to construct a harbor, and at the same time to protect the ring dike. When the work is done, we will recruit steersmen. In my youth, this area was in a deplorable condition, but today the huts have given way to neat rows of houses, and lack and ruin, which had crept in with poverty, have been driven out through diligence. From this, all people may learn that Varalda, our all-feeder, provides for his creations as long as they keep their spirits up and are willing to help one another. Yeah, I like this section for many reasons because it repeats. So Friedrich wrote firsthand
Hmm.
about his experiences with this same thing, and this is his son reiterating what he wrote, which kind of helps understand the section written by Frederik, and it's just an area that comes up again and again. The Liutgardens, Liutgarda, and it's quite important, but it doesn't get much attention in a lot of the videos that are out there about Oera Linda, which kind of concentrate on the first parts, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got a lot of it's for example, I find that this is probably one of the, when you look at the Sandbach translation, it's one of the absolute worst sections of his translation.
Yeah, yeah. There was this one word which we have a very new interpretation of. It's the hoof or hoof.
Yeah, he says.
Oh yeah,
in the
it was
shape
the
of a
form of
horseshoe.
a hoof, which doesn't really make sense. Which had the form of a hoof.
Yeah.
And the word HOF is always used in the context of palace or courtyard. And I think it makes more sense, but because they've made it beautiful, and now it has the appearance of a palace garden. We had, and now you have a better translation for that, palace courtyard, I think.
It's closer to Hof, right? So yard and courtyard and Hof are one to one, and I imagine it because of the canals and the straight lines kind of going through that. A courtyard often has, you know, like a fountain in the middle, and then lines going out in kind of symmetrical patterns. And
Yeah.
I at least imagine it then more close to what I think he's describing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, there's we discussed yesterday several of the terms that come up here, and I just wanted to exemplify some of the if somebody reads through this section and sees, for example, the differences between what's on the wiki and what I just read out, you'll see what the little nuances that we're really dealing with here as we go through and revise the translation again and again.
Yeah, because
Okay.
there's this particular sentence,
Yeah.
which I thought was one of the most important sentences of this part. They neither tire nor weary of their tasks when they have a clear goal in view. That's what it was, but we may change this because you suggested it. You suggested to turn it around somehow.
Right. Do you want to read out the original line?
Men vrijers volk is diger en vlietig. Jouwer dan moed ner werk. Vroeg dam jara doel to da besta leiden. For the occasion, I have looked at all the sentences with this vroeg dam.
Yeah.
In Dutch, you could say doordat, or because of in English.
Or by which.
By which, yeah. They're all, I don't know the exact grammatical or linguistic term, but sort of cause and effect relations, sentences. And I've split them like this. And sometimes they are phrased like first the effect, and then vroegdam, and then the cause. And sometimes it's vroegdam, and then the cause, and then the effect. So I've listed them all here. Here's the fragment that we're talking about. Vroegdam jara doel to da besta leiden, woron ja moed ner werk.
Yeah. You would expect them. I would expect them to repeat the subject after Trishtam, like Trishtam, ja, Doel, you know, but they don't. So it's very confusing to me anyway. And we talked about it for almost an hour yesterday.
Yes, literally it would be they became tired nor weary because their goal led to the best.
Yeah, which doesn't make a lot of sense.
That may have been idiom for them.
Yeah.
But for us it doesn't make really sense like this, so we have to interpret it.
Right. It could just be that the copyist left out a word, right? It is also a possibility.
Could be, but I wouldn't know what word.
Ja. After
Vroegdam ja, jara doel to the beste leiden.
Yeah.
So then ja leiden.
So that just points out some of the things that we deal with when we do this. And we had a list of other topics that you are working on at the moment that we wanted to talk about, which
Yeah,
had something to do with the transcription. Is that right? Or
I've worked wie ein Besessener, like a man possessed almost, on editing the transcription.
just to point out what you mean when you
Yeah.
say the transcription.
So this is like the third big project of the foundation of what I'm doing, what we've been doing thus far. The first main goal was to publish a printed book of the new translation, and we have had 4 different editions, and the last 2 were more edited with your help, especially the 4th version. And then the main focus became setting up the website, the wiki, on which we could have the most recent version, and also a forum on where things could be discussed, which we will talk about later. But then I started together with Pax to revise the transcription, because I had made some errors earlier, or I also had made some edits which I hadn't listed. So I thought we should list them all, and then from that the plan grew to make the spelling and the grammar more consistent, because there's a huge variety of spelling and also of grammar, also some mistakes. Some are obvious mistakes, like letters left out, or when one word is written almost consistently in one version, and then there's a spelling variety. It's not really a mistake, but we thought it's nicer it's easier to learn and teach this language if we have one spelling and grammar that is as consistent as possible, at least.
Right.
And it's like an exercise for me, and I'd like to point out again that this is no longer a real transcription. That's why I've renamed it edited transcription. And at some point we will also have to provide a real transcription again, with all the original spelling of the manuscript, because for some research that is really important. But this makes it visible. But the punctuation is a different story, because it's also used very inconsistently, and we are used to compound words, so we don't always need to have these dividing dots between the words. And I think it will make it more pleasant read for people who are a bit used to reading this language, if we don't have all these separating dots. And now we still have some.
Right, but they're used inconsistently anyway. Even like Varalda, sometimes it's with a dot and sometimes it's without. And
so the choice was either to add the dots where they were missing, which was what I did earlier. But later I decided it's nicer to leave them out, and people can still see here below, with the punctuation changes, where the dots had been.
Right.
You can also see them here, of course, in the manuscript. But if you are mainly reading the transcription, then you have a list to see what the original punctuation was and how we changed it.
Right. Or if you notice that there's a difference between the electronic version and the facsimile, you can look down. They changed
you
that.
You can see that it is intentional.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I was fascinated by is that in Old Greek you have these genitives. Oh, it's on the wiki with grammar studies. I made a little beginning of the grammatical case, I think. Yeah. So in the Frias language, you have many words like ending on s or is or his.
Yeah.
And his, nacht his, of the night, it's a genitive.
Right.
So originally it may have been nacht his, and sometimes
Possessive. We would say in English we call it the possessive for people who don't. Yeah.
It's like it's Freya his day. It's the day of Freya. Well, we don't say for a woman. We don't say his. We say her.
Mm.
But originally his was just the genitive.
Yeah.
And it was shortened with as is, and later the I was also left out sometimes. That as nachts.
Right, and we've got the apostrophe S in English. That basically is the same. Yeah.
But we don't need it. Plurals are never with an S at the end, like in our language.
Yeah.
So, well, that was one thing. But at least I'm learning a lot from it, and I feel very driven to do this, to do these edits. And yeah, like I say, I learn a lot from it by going through the whole text again.
Right. So your focus is learning or facilitating the learning of the original text, Freya's, because so that people can read it themselves.
Until recently, I understood the text well enough to translate it. Ever learning more, of course, also together with you. But now I get to know the language so well that I am able to point out anomalies or exceptions or even mistakes. And this morning I realized that it's kind of if I imagine that I got an appointment from Adela or someone else from the time to, okay, now there's this manuscript and there's some errors and inconsistencies in it. And because they often speak about the purity of language in these texts.
Right.
I thought it's a nice exercise to actually try to make it a bit more pure, and that will make it easier to write a grammar or create a dictionary.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's an interesting notion.
Yeah, that will probably be the next challenge for me when this is finished.
Yeah, that's right up your alley.
First I edited word by word through the whole text, and now I'm doing page by page. So I'm at page 52 now, which is a bit more than a quarter of the whole manuscript.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, and meanwhile, we're also slowly getting through this I'll say in quotes, final revision
of the translation. Yeah.
Of the translation too. So there's two things happening at once that are really promise to bring the project forward and make it more accessible to people, because I really think we're solving some things that even in this section that I read, there's several little nuances about where something about the geographical orientation compared to the Ringdijk and the Burg and stuff we've been talking about recently. So we're finding these small little pieces of the puzzle that you don't even notice the first 10 times that you read the book.
Yeah. For example, when studying this THRVCHDAM, which I showed earlier, I've also noticed that this sentence here in chapter 14e, there was a bit of a strange construction which I edited even in the transcription. Mm-hmm. I moved a word to make it more...
I remember.
And then we split the sentence in two. I'm showing it on the screen. We don't have to explain it in detail.
Explain it, yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one where you actually move. It's the only case I remember where you move a word so far, so far in the sentence, but it doesn't really make any sense otherwise.
Yeah. Again, it's noted on the bottom of the page, and I only do it when I'm pretty confident that it's an improvement. Yeah. Another change we made some time ago, which is significant, I think, is the translation of Gola.
Yeah.
Because earlier I had translated it as Gools, because I think it was pronounced like that, Gola. And I already had a footnote pointing out that it's maybe related to the Gauls and to the Gaelic.
Yes.
But we found that there is a Hebrew word for exiles, which is Golan. Mm-hmm. And there may be a relation there, because the Gola are defined in the text as the missionary priests from Sidon.
Right. Yeah, so
Uh,
they left home anyway. Whether they were forced to leave home is a different story. But
yeah, there may be some sort of relation. What relation is not sure. It's not
mm,
clear. But so what used to be called Gools in our old translation is now Gola again, which is closer to the original anyway.
right. Yeah, that I think is definitely a huge improvement. Some
Yeah.
of the names we haven't discussed all the different names and stuff. I think that's going to be kind of a last thing that we go through and make sure that we've got a consistent treatment of names and place names as they appear. We talked about the Linda Würde yesterday.
Yeah.
So there's still some consistency work to be done even after we get through with the transcription and editing of the translation, terminology, specific terminology, just to make sure that we're doing the same thing in every section with
Yeah.
every.
And there will always be dilemmas. Eh? Do
Right.
you keep the original spelling, or for example, some names are very well known, like Alexander
Hmm.
or Demetrius, Friso. Well, they are the same anyway, but like Konerate.
Konrad,
You
yeah.
would say Konrad in German.
Hmm.
Sometimes you can translate a name, which makes sense.
Right. It's the question?
Frederik.
Do you use Conrad
Yeah,
or try to make it as close to the original pronunciation as possible?
with
Yeah.
Frederik, we could say Frederick.
Right.
Uh, we will have dilemmas like that.
They won't be solvable. They're
No,
just at some point you gotta make a decision and
yeah.
go.
It has to also be a pleasant read. If you have many words or names that are hard to pronounce for English people, then it's also can be annoying to read it.
Right. That's interesting too. That once the translation into Dutch or German become a focus, we're gonna have to go through all this again
Yeah,
with how do you do the names.
yeah,
But yeah, one thing after the other.
yeah.
So that's what you've been working on, like a man possessed, with the with Pax together, and
Yeah, another thing that I have more focus on is I've read more about 13th century literature, in
yeah.
particular the Fox Reinaarde and Maarland, two books from Frits van Oostrom.
Hmm.
I had already read other books by him earlier. I'm going to reread some of the books I bought years ago, bought and read, because I will read them with different eyes, with more knowledge now.
And the significance of that for you is that this basically is a copy from the latest copyist that we know of was in the 13th century. Is that how you?
I have this recent blog posts in which I try to put some things in a more wider context.
Are you looking for references or
Well,
things?
one thing I can explain. It's like in 1256, which is less than 1 year after Hidde finished his copy.
Hmm.
He said the 1256th year, which will have been 1255.
Right.
But less than 1 year later, the then Count of Holland, William II, who was also king of the Roman Empire,
Hmm.
tried to conquer West Friesland. And 2 years earlier, the Frisians had helped him with the conquest of Aachen, a siege of Aachen.
Right.
And then he had, in gratitude for help of the Frisians, William confirmed the entire Frisian nation in the rights, freedoms, and privileges that they had already received from Charlemagne, based on the sources I've read.
That's the
Despite
Frisian freedom, or
despite this promise, the West Frisians would be attacked and plundered by William in 1254. So then he is about to be crowned as emperor of the Roman Empire, and only in the spring of 1256, and only 2 months earlier, in January, he tries to conquer them.
Yeah.
On horseback, they go over the ice, and then he falls through the ice, and he is clubbed. He is lambasted to death by the Frisians
Right. Yeah, I've read that.
in
Yeah.
Hoogwoud. And the Frisians will have been hated for that for centuries later, and because this William II, he built the court in Den Haag, and there's still a gold color image of him on top of a fountain.
Hmm. In Den Haag.
Yeah, the counts of Holland have never been that close to larger power, international power, than he was.
I see.
And when you put that in the context of the massacre of Vronen, which I've discussed in the Joure presentation with some video material with the skeletons and the skulls with cuts in them.
Yeah.
That was 50 years after this, almost 50 years.
Hmm.
So then they invited an English or a British group of soldiers to completely massacre the population there.
The entire village. Yeah.
And, probably not only the village, but many more people, and not
And the
only,
burg, right?
including women and children.
Yeah. And we found that was there's archaeological evidence of that.
Yeah,
right?
recent archaeological evidence,
Mm.
because those bones were discovered in the 1990s, but only investigated 20 years later,
Ah,
in 2011 or something.
I didn't realize that the find was so far in the past.
Yeah.
And that we equate the Vronen, which is now called Saint Pancras, right?
Yeah. It was wiped away from the map. Yeah.
To the Burg Forana.
Forana, indeed. Yeah. Which will have been one of the most significant places, but it's
Right.
a whole story. There's
That's where the market Wieringen was and everything, right?
it was close to that, yeah. On the wiki, there is when you go to the index of place names, some place names are really short descriptions, can be expanded later. But from Vronen, I have an extensive study.
Yeah.
Where also the information about this. Here's the skull with the cuts.
The massacre.
Yeah. And the relevant fragments. So this is an extensive study of a geographical location.
Right. So that's on the wiki too. You can find that in the.
Yeah. And there's some other examples of more extensive pages.
The Aldarga. That's the other discussion we had recently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll finish that discussion and hopefully have an answer very soon. Okay.
So I think I've said enough about that. I think this research will bear fruit later. It will make it easier for me also to discuss this with others, with actual scholars of history or of language. But it makes it understandable that if there has been cultural tradition in West Friesland, then it may have been destroyed by many years of war and suppression from the side of the Counts of Holland, who had a very different culture. And they were more working together with the French king and later with the English king and with the German, the puppet kings, as they are called in the texts. And the West Frisians, or the Freyas, will have referred to the Counts of Holland as working together with the Gola.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. The English, I guess. Yeah.
And the language, it's called Middle Dutch of the 13th century Flemish and Southern Netherlands texts, is also more like French. For example, is, in German ist, in Dutch and English it's is, there it's s, like in French. Tu es, il es, and in Latin also est.
Right, yeah.
But that's just one example, but there are many more insights like that.
Yeah, someday hopefully we'll get behind where these interminglings of language actually took place, and how much of them were organic and how much of them were top-down oppression measures. It's very exciting to think about, but as you said, it's going to take some real academic research into these things because of the wars and, of course, the natural state of that area of the world. For people who don't understand, it's just, the flooding. The flooding would still be going on if it wasn't for the Afsluitdijk, right? So it's amazing that any of this has actually survived through history, and it's a gift to have found it for me.
Yeah, it's known that there was naval trade from, for example, from Stavoren, and also, of course, the Flemish coastal towns.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be very strange that in Flanders they had this rich tradition of writing and reading already, and in West Friesland there would have been nothing at all, just simply because nothing was saved or is public presently.
Yeah. What is the writing there that you're showing?
Yeah, this is on the forum. Pax has made a digital version of Festa's Runskrift.
Wow.
This famous page I'm showing here, page 64 with the alphabet.
Yeah.
It has. It shows how the letters were formed of the six-spoke wheel, but it also shows the Runskrift, which is only described in this text, and it is not used anywhere.
Yeah, it's not
except for the numbers. And for a long time, or in the 1870s, this was considered like a normal modern longhand, but it isn't. Some letters are indeed very similar to ours, like the K and the S and the C and the M.
Mm-hmm.
But, for example, the NG here, or the F, which is more like a Greek phi, they are not clear at all what they are without the context.
And it's very difficult to see the Runskrift. I've wanted to kind of look at it, but it's very difficult to even see in that, and to imagine how the letters fit together and stuff.
So earlier, and
I figured it out.
I don't have it at hand, but earlier I already tried to connect these letters and make words of them.
Yeah.
But Pax now has created this,
Very cool.
And it's not meant to use as a font like to write on a computer, because it's very difficult to connect these letters. But people who want to try calligraphy with a real pen and ink, they can try to use these letters to write in what Festa's Runskrift will have been.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the numbers, our so-called Arabic numbers, are much more like the Festa's version than the Standschrift, the Freya Standschrift version. Yeah. These two have been added by Pax, by the way, to have it a 12-digit. It's a different story.
Very cool.
That's one of the things that have been going on the forum, and I myself, I'm not very active on the forum. I sometimes wish I could be, but the forum has been one thing to make that I have less work discussing things with people, so people can discuss with each other.
Yeah, and they are. It's being used. I mean, it's not one of these dead forums that you find on the internet. It actually it looks like one from the way it's the look and feel of it is like an old forum from the old days, but it actually there's people that regularly post on there.
Yeah, the look and feel will be improved shortly, I think. Okay. Pax and Henk will be talking about that soon. But this is another example. Recently, someone made an impression of how the Burg, as it is described by Apollania, may have looked like from above. Oh. It's a creative exercise.
But absolutely, that's wonderful. That's the Burg. What burg was she describing there?
Liutgarda, I think.
Liutgard,
Burg
yeah.
Liutgarda. And
Mm.
here there's a crafter, is a drawer. He has made many drawings, and his work is also improving.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's really fun to go through the forum and just see what amazing thoughts these people, people are putting so much thought and research into. A lot of them have a lot of historical knowledge and, of course, knowledge of other Germanic, in quotes, languages. And it's a very enriching experience. It's forum.oralinda.org.
.org, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Okay, Jan. Well, I think we've covered quite a few topics. Hopefully, people will enjoy this video as much as I enjoyed making it. And we'll continue our work. And hopefully, before we said before the Yuletide, which is actually already started, that we try to get one more video in before the end of the year.
Yes, if we have some more news, or otherwise it's maybe a short one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll talk soon.
You too, Bruce. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.